992, identify which of the relationships shown below is not a function. Explain your reasoning. So we're looking for which one is not. Well, it's been a while since we've worked through this, and we know that in order to have a function, when we are talking in terms of tables, we need to have every input needs to have a distinct output. So what that means is, remember our x is our input and our y is our output. So when we put something in for x, something comes out for y. So let's have a look at our first table here for part A. So I have a 3, which gives me a 12, an 8 that gives me a 4, a 1 that gives me a 0, a 9 that gives me a 4, a negative 1 that gives me a negative 3, and a 0 that gives me a negative 8. So for this table, I would say we have all different inputs, and we can see that each one of those inputs does have a distinct output. So I would say that A is a function. So that means that B must not be a function. But let's have a look, rather than just skipping ahead and saying, oh, B is not a function and leaving it at that. Remember, we are being asked to explain our reasoning. So we really need to take a good look at part B here and figure out, well, what is it that makes this not a function? Let's have a look at our inputs here. So I have 5, I get out 2, 2, I get out 0, negative 1 gives me a negative 11, 0 gives me an 8, negative 15 gives me a negative 25, and 2 gives me a 1. Ooh, I do see a problem here. So let's take a look really quick. I noticed that I have 2 inputs of 2. Now it's interesting because my first one gives me an output of 0, but my second one gives me an output of 1. Now that cannot be. That is not allowed in a function. That is not how a function machine works, right? Because remember, we're putting that input in, we're turning that function machine crank, and it is giving us, it's following one rule. So that function machine is only programmed to do one function. So we are not able to have an input of 2 with 2 separate outputs. So that's what we need to explain here. So we're going to say B is not a function. And all we really need to say for this is that there are 2 different outputs for an input of 2. So again, B is not the function. That is all for 992.